Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, my name is Nurhaliza Fitri. I'm a student of English Department Polytechnic Negeri Padang. And now I'm going to present a material about communication. In this occasion, I will present five points that I have learned before. They are concept of communications, uh, basic principles of communications, type of communications, and purpose of communications, and barriers to communications. Okay, let's enjoy. Okay, everyone. First, let's we start this presentations um, subject of communication skills. First, I will discuss about concept of communications. There are 2 points that I will discuss on this topic. First is definition of communication, and the second is process of communications. So, what is communication? Communication is a process of sharing information, including messages, ideas, opinions, facts, or expressions from one person to another person of group of people. In fact, we spend 70% of our time receiving and sending messages. Uh, the word communication um, actually comes from the Latin word communicare, meaning to share or make common. In other words, communication is the process of transmitting information from one person to another to create a shared understanding and feeling. And so next, communication skills. Communication skills are abilities you use when giving and receiving different kinds of information which involves listening, speaking, observing, and empathizing. Some examples include communicating ideas, feelings, or what's happening around us. Um, so, communication skills means that we are we have a skills to communicate each other. Communication skills help us to produce effective communications, to remove the communication barriers that we have make when we have communications with others. So, uh, when we have a communication skills, it means that we have uh, we have to understand what senders say, and what message that they are give to us. And next, communications process. Communication process is the steps we take in order to achieve a successful communications. Communication process is continuous and lifelong process. And next, according to experts. Based on the experts, we can conclude definition of communications. First, according to Kate Davis, communication is a process of passing information and understanding from one person to another. Second, according to John Adair, communication is essentially the ability of one person to make contact with another and make himself or herself understood. According to Peter Litter, communication is a process by which information is transmitted between individuals and or organizations so that an understanding response results. For William Newman and Charles Summer, communication is an exchange of ideas, facts, opinions, or emotions of two or more persons. And more experts can definition can can give definition of communication. So the next is what should be present in a communication. Communication is a two-way process involving the following elements. First is sender. Sender is the person who deliver the message. And next, message means the information submitted. Medium means media or tools used to convey message. Channel can be air, telephone, or radio, and etc. A receiver means that the person receiving the message. Response and feedback. So I'm as a presenter give you so my position is as sender and you as receiver, and presentations that I will tell to you is the message. So the next is process of communication. Process of communications start from sender. Sender will give a message to receiver and encode the message, and receiver decode the message. In communication, the message can be have a noise. Noise can be network or barriers or many others noise can use. And next, after and decode the message, receiver will give a feedback to a sender, and so and the message should be give medium by medium. So this is a cyclus or map process of communication. And next, okay, I'm going to present the second point. There are type of communications. So what type of communication? Based on style and purpose, there are two main categories of communications, and they um, based on channels of there are two types of communication based on channel communication. They are verbal communication and non-verbal communication. First, I will discuss about verbal communication. Verbal communication refers to the form of communication in which message is transmitted verbally. Um, Verbal communication is further divided into two: oral or spoken and written communications. Oral or spoken communications, it includes face-to-face conversations, speech, telephonic conversation, video, radio, televisions, voice over internet. In oral communications, spoken words are used. So we just use by mouth, like for example, what I'm do now. So the next is written communication. It can be transmitted via letter, report, memo, reports, bulletins, job descriptions, employee manuals, and electronic mail are the types of written communication used for internal communications. But oral communication and written communication have advantage and disadvantage each other. So I think the advantage of oral or spoken communication is there is high level of understanding and transparency in oral communication, and spoken instructions are flexible and easily adaptable to many diverse situations. Oral communication is best in case of problem resolutions. The conflicts, disputes, and many issues or differences can be put to end by talking them over. And oral communication can be best used to transfer private and confidential information or matter. And disadvantage of oral communications is poor presentations of the message or the instruction can result in misunderstanding and wrong responses. Oral communication, such as speech, is not frequently used as legal records except in investigation work. While written communications have advantage like helps in laying down apparent principles, policies, and rules of running of an organizations. Written communication is more precise and explicit. Effective written communication develops and enhances an organization image. And disadvantage of written communication is people may not always read them. Written communication takes time, a lot time. It is impersonal or unfriendly, and too much paperwork. So it does not answer questions and there is no immediate feedback. So there are the next slide is nonverbal communication. Nonverbal communications means anything besides words such as gestures, facial expressions, body language, and other aspects of your physical appearance to convey information to others. Um, Nonverbal communications has the following three elements. They are appearance, body language, and sounds. Appearance includes speaker, such as clothing, hairstyles, neatness, use of cosmetics, and etc. And body language, such as facial expressions, gestures, uh, postures, and how one stands is an important elements of non-verbal communications. For example, leaning towards a speaker indicates intense interest. Frequently, looking away from the speaker indicates disinterest or impotence. And the last is sounds. Sounds include voice tone, volume, speech rate. And the nonverbal communication have a advantage and disadvantage. Advantage. A first advantage of nonverbal communication is you can communicate with someone who cannot hear, and in places where you have to avoid talking audibly. Nonverbal communications make conversations short and brief. Um, Nonverbal communication also save save on time and can be used as a tool to communicate with people who don't understand your language. While disadvantage of nonverbal communication is long conversations using nonverbal communication are usually not possible, and nonverbal communication varies from culture to cultures, and many others disadvantages or advantage of nonverbal communication. Okay, uh, next is type of communication based on style and purpose. They are formal communication and informal communication. Formal communication is occurs in formal and official style. Usually professional settings, corporate meetings, conferences undergoes informal pattern. While informal communication it's just a casual talk. Informal communication, unlike formal communication, doesn't follow authority lines. Informal communication helps in building relationships. For example, formal communication in office, meeting, but while informal communication, for example, friend, and usually use a slang word. Okay, next is uh, the third point is basic principles of communication. The principles of communication are those aspects that have to be taken into account when relaying any communication. These principles provide guidelines for the content and style of presentation adapted to the purpose and receiver the message. They are called the 7 Cs. They are completeness, conciseness, consideration, concreteness, clarity, courtesy, and correctness. Um, we I will discuss one by one. The first is completeness. Completeness means that your message should be complete and bring desirable results and provide all necessary information. For example, I just want to send you all a reminder about the meeting we are having tomorrow. So, in this message is not complete for obvious reasons. What meeting? When is it? Where? So, it's need necessary information. The next is conciseness. Conciseness means that keep it clear and to the point. Your message short short and simple. Don't use 10 words if you can use 5. Don't repeat your message. Use single word instead of phrases. Include only relevant material. For example, worthy at this time, consist now. The third is considerations, means that preparing every message with the receiver in mind. Try to put yourself in their place. As a sender, you have to put yourself to the receiver. You have to understand and think from others' angle. So you can uh, you can try to put yourself in the receiver place. Next is concreteness. Concreteness means you have to concrete message has the following features. It is supported with specific facts and figures. It makes use of words that are clear. Concrete messages are not misinterpreted. Next is clarity. Clarity refers to clarity of thought and expressions. The purpose is to getting the meaning from the sender's head to the head of the receiver accurately. And next is courtesy. Courtesy means politeness and decency. Use expressions that show respect and choose non-discriminatory expressions. Courtesy is more important and advantageous being aware of not only of the perspective of others, but also their feeling. This means being aware of gender, race, age, color, and etc. For example, uh, you guys should all be concerned about the issue. So, but but men that women, all of you should be concerned about the issue. It's more desirable. And the last is correctness. Correctness. Communication must be correct in tone and style of expressions, spelling, grammar, format, contents, statistical information, stress untrusted, and etc. The term correctness as applied in message calls for the following. Use the right level of language. Check accuracy of figures, facts, and words. Maintain acceptable writing mechanics. And the next point is the purpose of communication. According to Monteloggi and Carlson A, the purpose of communication is to get your message across to others clearly and unambiguously. And the common purpose of communication is to inform, to express feelings, to imagine, to influence, and to meet a social expectation. So that's why we communicate each other. We want to inform something, we want to express our feelings or what what uh, what etc. And the next is importance of communications. They are they are have a some points. First is we communicate in order to educate and give instruction to the people we are communicating with. To provide knowledge, for instance, in school, course, political release, and etc. To give expertise and skills for smooth functioning by people in society. To create awareness and give opportunity to people to actively participate in public life. We communicate for information. In case you want to know something, you have to ask and be told. And we listen for entertainment, we listen for discussion and to persuasion, and more importance of communication. So the next is this is the last point that I have learned before, namely barriers to communication. Barriers to communication is something that keeps meaning from meeting. Meaning barriers exist between all people, making communication much more difficult than most people seem to realize. So there are some barriers to communication. The first is physical barriers. For example, physical about uh, physical appearance and many others. And the next is system design. System design such as the wrong media uh, or would air or what happened about media. And next is semantic barriers. They are include physiological barriers, physiological barriers, presentation of information, environmental barrier, physiological impairment barrier, syntactical barrier, organizational barriers, cultural barriers, and noise. Noise of communication. There are many noise or barriers to communication, and now we as a sender or such as a person who want to give a message to who want to give message to receiver will 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 have barriers about to communication. There are many reasons why interpersonal communication may fail. In many communication, the message may not be received exactly the way the sender intended, and hence it is important that the communicator seeks feedback to check that their message is clearly understood. And so I think there are barriers to communication. And so okay guys, I think that's all that I can talk to you about communication skills. So I I'm sorry for the mistake if I make mistake before since I give you explain about communication. Thank you for your attention, and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.